Chapter 3 Pinch Educator. Christian was trapped in the anime club room. He tried to escape with the excuse of needing to go to the bathroom, but Jacob blocked his path. "Where are you going, cutie?" he asked. But he held it. There it is. Christian's stomach was starting to revolt, but he held it in. He was walking on pinheads. One wrong move, and an entire room of homosexuals was prepared to send him straight to the afterlife. But his life was finished. He wanted to fulfill the commandment of having children one day. He had sins he still wanted to atone for. It couldn't end here. Not yet. Christian held his stomach and sat back down. Nolan addressed the club. All the members turned towards the front with robotic precision, and they sat evenly spaced and in unison, as if mimicking a regimented army corps. "My apologies for allowing a hottie in here, but I thank my fellow club members for the swift disposal of that." Nolan's eyes scanned the room for insubordination. "Thing." Christian's stomach flipped. Not only did they have blatant disregard for human life, but not a single person in the room questioned it. Even Tyler, the dark-skinned boy beside him, who he had known for all his life as a friend, looked onward to the president's presentation with awe. Christian worried he was too far gone. No, Christian thought to himself. The loss of life ends at John. Christian, determined to save his friend, he would take down the anime club by the inside if necessary, and he would show all of its members the light. With the power of God, he could change this school. Everyone had their eyes clouded by Satan, but he alone saw through it all with his relationship. Nolan started up a projector and gave another presentation. This one was far scarier than anything Christian had ever seen. "Now, as you can see by this chart," Nolan said, "while hate speech is growing stronger, homophobia is actually on the decline in the country. This is in part by organizations such as ourselves, which spreads awareness and brings about positive interactions with the members of the LGBTQIA++ community, as well as fostering safe spaces for communications about misunderstanding of gay people and their experiences. This is also due to, in large part, to increasing time given to their issues, now by the country's sexual education courses. Now for the rest of the Christian stopped listening as Nolan continued babbling on. The president had already tripped so many red flags. He spoke calmly, as if it didn't bother him that the state was endorsing propaganda aimed at furthering the left's agendas to push homosexuality on children who are young, vulnerable, and naive. Putting these issues in school would only confuse them. Not to mention, the president hung closely to such a nebulous term, homophobia. The word, as Christian's pastors helped him to understand as a kid, derived from homosexual, meaning choosing to have sex with a member of the same gender and sex, and phobia, meaning irrational fear. However, Christian did not have irrational fear of homosexuals. His fear was rationally based. It was a calculated fear, based upon damage they would do to a society. He feared for the children that would grow up without a father or mother. He feared having children be taught misinformation about reproduction and never get the chance to have a wonderful experience of having children of their own. But worst of all, he feared the slippery slope which homosexuality leads. And now that brings me to transgenderism, Nolan says. Now, as I said, the purpose of this presentation is merely to be a report of the facts of recent discourse around human sexuality. So while I know there are some among you with experiences related to what I'm about to discuss, please keep those in mind, and we will discuss them in another meeting. And hopefully, Kiss Anime will be back up for us to put up some Boku no Pico as we do so. Nolan cleared his throat, and then went to the next slide before continuing. But as I was saying, it has recently been added to the UK curriculum the understanding that it is possible for a woman to have a penis, as, of course, gender is merely a social construct, whereas sex characteristics are different. While society associates certain personalities, attires, and activities with sexes, sex does not actually preclude these traits, and these associations are actually better defined as gender. The problem arises when an individual has a body of one sex, yet their mind operates on the associative traits of another. For many, this can be solved by acting in accordance with an opposite gender's association. A person born with a penis may decide to dress and act in a feminine way, and thus a woman can have a penis. This is transgenderism. There's also transsexuality, where a person experiences such a mismatch of their mind and body that they change their sex altogether. Christian's mind was reeling. Nolan spoke of this, all of it, in such an authoritative manner, and he spoke as if these were all facts. But the evidence that this was not the case, it was in his own words. This was all in the people's heads. They could change the word mental illness to dysphoria if they must, but it doesn't change the fact that these people are sick and confused, and making this practice seem okay will only worsen the problem. Is it okay to understand these people's struggles? It is okay to understand these people's struggles, but is it another time to it's another thing to entirely normalize it. Would one normalize sociopathy? No. And that wasn't to say anything about the harm these disorders had on people. Nolan didn't even mention the high suicide rates that transgender people faced. People are born into one gender and they cannot create it. Of course not, Nolan went on. Transgender people continue to face increasing discrimination even as other members of the LGBT community have gained acceptance. This has directly led to an increasing rate of suicide, but promising studies show that if a person is able to complete this transition, the rates plummet. And for individuals living in regions with low conservative populations, the rate's practically zero. Christian was skeptical of these numbers. Where was the evidence? Nolan merely asserted these things, but facts don't care about your feelings. And the fact was, transgenderism was harmful to the society and the individuals that practice it. Now, as you'll see here, I've cited multiple peer-reviewed articles about the issues, and Matthew is currently passing around a QR code that will take you to a Google Doc to read these in your own time. But for now, I will move on. Christian quickly scanned the list of references. He was confused for a moment, but the second his eyes locked onto the words CNN and a link, he knew what was up. His pastor once told him that all liberal media was biased, and therefore you couldn't trust any of it. So Christian sat thinking about his pastor's assertion, while not accepting Nolan's assertions, until provided with proper evidence.